The annual lecture is now in its 6th year, and indeed the campaign now stretches back over 8 years. And what we do is we take an annual occasion in which we put a high-profile speaker in front of a largely non-academic, non-social science audience. Paul Johnson is the director of the Institute for Fiscal Studies with an unparalleled reputation for independence and robustness in using evidence to explain the relationship between the economy, the people and the government. And we're very lucky to have him as our 6th annual lecturer talking about the lessons for public policy 10 years on from the financial crisis.
I think I'm reflecting on a couple of things. First is just how remarkable the last decade has been, not in a good way. The economy is an awful lot smaller, people's earnings are an awful lot lower than you might reasonably have expected. But I'm also going to be saying, well look, there are a whole set of things that were going on before the crisis that we're now worried about, that we really took us a long time to notice. A lot of the things that we're worried about at the moment that you hear in the press and so on, about low wages, about housing, about young doing less well than the old, about income inequality, essentially those are all stories which we should have known pre-crisis. And some of us did know pre-crisis, but I think it was not generally recognised. So my message, in a sense, if I have a central message, is we need to get our heads around what's going on much, much quicker.
The partnership with Sage Publishing is absolutely crucial for the campaign's continuing success for 3 reasons. The first is that they help us to communicate to a large audience made up of mainly non-social scientists. The second is we want to reach that audience and extend it into the world of decision makers and those who in fact are interested in the questions that social scientists can help to answer. And the third and most important in many respects is that Sage's penetration into the next generation of social scientists means that actually our communication affects who will be doing social science in the future. And this year's report on positive prospects is a very good example of that.
It couldn't be more apt for our times. When we look at a time when politics is in great turmoil, technology is in great turmoil, to have someone who is able to comment on the nature of our society today is exactly what we need. It was a really rich, stimulating, fascinating lecture. Loved it.
It was very well presented, and Paul's just a great speaker, so he was very engaging, very accessible, complex economic data and social change being presented in a very accessible way.
In the broader sweep of history, we've actually managed to increase spending on health by 3 times as a fraction of national income since the 1950s, and we haven't had to raise more tax to do it. How have we done it? It's the mirror image of spending on defence. We've abolished defence spending and used that money to pay for health.
The very clear opposite directions that defence spending and health spending went in is a very simple point, but makes a much bigger one of we are running out of services that we can trade off against each other, public services that we can trade off against each other. So without a big change, we're going to have a state-supplied public service that is down to really just the most essential things.
One of the hidden problems in our society that we haven't paid enough attention to is what is happening to low-qualified men in particular, who are increasingly finding themselves working shorter hours in jobs they never expected to do and in lower status professions than maybe their fathers did. That's a good thing for gender equality, but it's a bad thing for satisfaction and support for the status quo.
When I was learning my trade as an economist, the presumption was if a man was in work, they'd be working full time, and that was broadly true. That's no longer true, and I think that is a change, and that's not driven by choice to stay at home and look after children and so on. This is a much different social phenomenon.
Many people are interested in the state of our economy, and in particular they're interested in how our society has responded to the challenges of the last 10 years. This is not about making the case for social science or social scientists. It's about making the case for how social science can make us a more prosperous, more cohesive and indeed a better society.
Social science is all about understanding what's happening to society and the economy, whether it is what's happening to productivity, what's happening, why are our earnings not going up anymore, why is inequality where it is, why have we got an intergenerational difference which is very new in the sense that older people are doing so much better than younger people. economics can help you understand all of that, but other social sciences also help you understand what the impact of that is on people's lives, what the impact of that is on politics and how people are making their choices. And I think one of the messages I want to get across today is that there's a lot of stuff out there that we ought to be taking account of when we're making policy, that social science is telling us is happening or is in danger of happening, and the politicians and the social scientists really do need to be working together to address not just the issues that we should have been addressing a decade ago, but also the issues that are going to hit us over the next decade.